Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Well, I got some OC that happened to me around March of this year. Me, best friend, and roommate are at my house. We're all sitting at the kitchen table that is right next to the window looking out into the front yard. I had called another anon to come over so we could all go hang out. Window is to my left, sitting across from me is my friend, Anon 1. Window to his right. My roommate is on his cell phone not paying attention to anything going on, and I'm bullshitting with Anon 1 while waiting for Anon 2. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a figure pass by the window. I notice my friend noticed as well, and we both snap our heads towards the window, then back at the door which was located behind my friend, Anon 1, expecting Anon 2 to walk in. Door slowly creeps open and me and Anon 1 are watching the door. No one comes in. WTF.jpg. Roommate still on his phone texting his girlfriend like always. Me and friend make eye contact like a deer making eye contact with a car's headlights. You saw that too? Yep. Tell roommate, hey, let's go. Anon 2 isn't coming. Get the hell up, get out of the house, get in my car. And we all nope our way to Anon 1's house. Roommate asking where we're going and why we're leaving. STFU and let's go. GIF. Tell him what happened when we're far away from the house and he freaks out. Basically, we got the hell out of the house for the day. Way too creepy. Had to come back at night with my roommate, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. Thank God. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't the wind or anything. Southern Cali rarely has wind strong enough to open a door like that. I have another one that happened to me last year in July. And I'll never forget that month and year along with this story because it was the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me. Worse than the one above I just posted, but this one is a bit of a story, so bear with the long green text. Also a little background info about me to provide some insight on the story. I'm 22 years old and I'm a fairly new, 2 years taxi driver in San Jose, Costa Rica. Born and raised in Southern California though, if y'all are wondering why my English isn't broken. Anyways, be me driving back home at around 9 p.m. finishing my shift for the day. Pass by an old neighborhood with shitty-looking houses and empty lots all around. See a woman standing on the side of the road in front of an old creepy dark-looking house waving me down. Being the dumbass nice guy that I am, not being able to resist a woman, I stopped. Screw it.jpg and I pick her up. I'm relieved when she says her house is on the way to mine. She looked like she was in her early 30s, a 6 out of 10. Brown hair, a little chubby, and coffee with milk-type skin. About 5 minutes into the drive, she confesses with a guilt-toned voice that she has no money. But I figured that she was scared to be walking around that neighborhood at night and didn't want to admit right away she had no money, so I wouldn't say no and leave her on the side of the road. She goes off about how if I go to her house the next day, someone will be there to give me the money. But she wouldn't be there because of work. But for sure that someone would be there to give me my pay. Being the nice idiot that I am, I agree, and we're there in the next 5 minutes after the conversation. I park in front of her house and wait just to make sure she gets inside her home okay. I watch her close the door and I take off. The next day I had my lunch at about 1 p.m. I take an hour. I take advantage of my lunch break and drive to the lady's house to collect my money. Every cent counts, I suppose. I get there at about 1:20 p.m. and knock on the door. A woman in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, answers the door and greets me with a half-confused good day. I tell her the situation and what had happened the night before, and she looks at me like if I had autism. She assured me that no woman by that description lives there. At this point, I get frustrated because I feel like I'm getting played for a fool, and someone is trying to cheat me out of my money by pulling a stupid runaround, because I tell her I saw her walk into this house with my own 2 eyes. After about 2 minutes of frustrating questions and arguing, the lady finally snaps and tells me to come inside. I follow thinking she's going to pay me and rather not deal with my bullshit. She tells me to wait near the front door. She walks into a room. About time. Winrar. She comes outside with some papers and asks me, pointing to a picture on the mantle. Is that the woman you saw? Yes, WTF, give me my money so I can leave. GIF. She says that the woman in the picture is her daughter, and she died 6 months ago, handing me the death certificate signed and dated by the court and hospital. She tells me that her daughter was mugged and shot in the stomach on the road I had supposedly picked her up from. Nope.jpg, keep the money, sorry for bothering you, have a good day. And I got the hell out. I continued my shift, but I couldn't help but get goosebumps sometimes thinking about it. Weirdest shit ever. Or the best prank I've ever fallen for.
OC from about 10 years ago. Be 16 and I just got my license. Have some experience in the woods and decide that me and my buddy should go alone for the first time. Drinking without parents around was a way to convince him. He's not in a woods type at all, but he's down for going to Algonquin Park for the long weekend with me. We finally find a spot way deep in the woods that I think is a cool spot. We got there later than expected, so we set up camp. The city bitched about this, even though it took all of 30 minutes. I make a fire so we can cook dinner. He complains of a headache, so I grab a bottle of aspirin. After dinner, we are tired from the long drive and decide to call it a night. I forgot the aspirin sitting on a log near the fire pit. We must have been sleeping for at least a couple of hours, and I hear some loud ass noises, and Buddy, who is a bodybuilder about as jacked as you can get at high school age and acts like a tough guy, whimpers in a hushed but obviously terrified voice. Anon, I saw a guy walk past the tent, through the screen window we left open. The noises are loud. I feel certain it wasn't a person as we were deep in the woods. Drove for almost 2 hours on a tight trail to get there, not seeing anyone around. Very few go that deep, and the ones who do are spread out far apart. I tell him to relax. It's probably an animal. Maybe a deer sniffing around from drippings of our food in the fire or some shit. He just sits there with a look of horror on his face. Then I hear rattling. It's the aspirin bottle that was left out. Then I hear noises which sound like muffled coughs, like someone trying to hold back a cough and not make noise. I'm spooked now. Want to look strong because nothing more pathetic than a couple of young men pissing their pants over a raccoon or some other critter. I say, is someone there? No response. No. I say to my friend loudly, so if someone was out there, they'd hear me. Pass me my boots, put boots on. Pass me the rifle. It was a .18 BB gun I wanted to shoot small game with. As soon as I say rifle, I hear whatever this thing is take off running, still holding the aspirin bottle as it rattled off into the woods at an alarming rate. I saw the outline of it as it took off, kind of like a silhouette, and it looked human, but hard to tell as it was dark, and I convince myself my eyes are playing tricks on me. Go back in the tent and don't want to stir things up, so I say, "Lol, it was just a raccoon, you giant coward." He refuses to believe that, but I manage to convince him as things are always louder at night out there, and it was just casting a shadow from the moonlight. Next day, I woke up early and walked towards the direction I heard the rattling of the bottle. About 500 or 600 meters from our camp, I see the bottle. The cap is off, childproof, no teeth marks or anything, and every last pill is gone. None laying on the ground anywhere or anything. I look at it in disbelief for quite a while. I scan the area slyly, trying to not make it obvious I'm scanning as I feel like I'm being watched or something. Make my way back to camp. Tell Buddy we're moving to be closer to the water. He doesn't want to reset the camp because he's lazy. I convince him along the beach areas there are usually other campers and girls and we can party. A lie, there's never anyone out there that deep. This convinces him, so we pack up. I drive an hour away to get to the next camp. My face when we were literally a 5-minute hike from the water at the original site. My face when I never told him anything about what I saw, and to this day tease him about how the big tough guy shit his pants over a raccoon. May not be as spoopy as some stuff on here, but it's at least a true story.
Here's a little spook that happened to me, but is mainly cobbled together from things my mum told me when I got a little older. Lived in this 3-bedroom place with my mum and my younger brother, 2 years younger. My brother had an imaginary friend he called Coocoo. Mum thought nothing of it. He was only 3 at the time, so it didn't seem all that odd. One day, a family friend is over with her twin daughters. Me being the same age as them are showing them around our huge garden and playing with the family dog. Family friend goes to use the bathroom, which is upstairs. As she leaves the sitting room, she can hear my brother talking to someone and playing what sounds like patty cake with them at the top of the stairs. Does a double check to see if the rest of us are still in the garden enjoying the sun. Yep, all 3 of us are still out there. Hey, kids are weird sometimes, but she asks my brother anyway. T, who were you talking to just now? Coocoo, he's my new friend. Where is he, T? He's gone now. You scared him away. She relayed the conversation to my mother, who was slightly concerned, but chalked it up to him being young. One day my mother asked me if I'd ever seen my brother's friend, and I told her that I hadn't. What I didn't know at this point was my mother kept hearing cupboards opening late at night and had heard footsteps in her room running around her bed. One night, after bath time, my brother and I are running around in the living room trying to avoid our mum. We have a dining room that adjoined the living room with a huge ass oak table that could seat 8 people, used to hide under it and pretend it was a fort. As I'm running towards that end of the house, my feet come from under me, and I land flat on my ass and turn white as a sheet. Ah, what's wrong? Mommy, there's a little boy under the table. Now, all I remember of this was seeing the head and torso of a boy about the same age as me appear out of nowhere from behind one of the chairs in the dining room. Only detail I could make out was he had no eyes, just 2 holes where eyes would normally be. That is the only time I ever saw Coocoo, but my brother continued to play with him, and my mum still heard noises, ECT, in the night. I've not really had any paranormal experiences of my own, but my mother has had some trippy shit happen when she was younger. She's not the type of person to make up bullshit either, so I believe what she saw that night when she was a college student.
Be about 8 at elementary school. The building is apparently haunted. Mom works in the school office, so I'm often at school as late as 8 in the evening. I'm often alone, as she was often one of the last people to clear out for the day. One night I hear footsteps, thinking it's my mom coming back from a conversation with one of the teachers. I continue to hear footsteps in the office, but I'm still alone. Footsteps are audibly within about a yard of me. I'm freaking out, too scared to call out or anything. Footsteps stop. The computer monitor at Mom's desk abruptly turns on, turns back off. I'm still shocked, back plastered to my chair. I swear I could hear faint breathing. Footsteps resume, this time proceeding out of the room. Remain still for a few minutes more before Mom returns. I've said nothing to her about this incident. Not really exciting, but freaked me out.
This one isn't that spoopy. Weird, but not spoopy. I lived in northern Tennessee from 2001 to 2003, and this probably happened when I was 9 or 10. It's odd because of what I do remember about it, I guess. Go camping somewhere with my dad and a few other scouts from my troop. Not all of them, but maybe 1 or 2 guys. I didn't go to the same school as all of them, so I wasn't super close friends with any of the other scouts in my troop. Anyway, show up. My dad is camping with me. He brought this old green pup tent I didn't know he had. We went camping as a family a few times and owned a much larger, more modern tent. The tent he brought was like an olive drab tarp. I've never seen it again after this story. Hanging around, don't remember what we did during the day. I don't think even the scoutmaster went. At some point, some other scouts come over where we are. They took me and at least 1 other guy from my group into the woods. Don't remember following a trail or anything, just going through the woods. End up at this old concrete house in the middle of the woods. Inside, there's an old fridge, bed spring. Upstairs, but the staircase was blocked. We hung around for a bit. Starts getting dark. I remember running through the woods back to camp. Scouts that took us there were gone by the time we got back. It just seems so odd I can't remember more about the house or who the other scouts were. I remember so many other things. My dad lost a part to his camp stove. We ate some soup after leaving, my friend showing me how dried leaves sound like firecrackers when burning. It was such an odd trip too. Why did we go and not the whole troop? I can't even remember if we wore our uniforms.
Is it possible you had a dream about camping? That would explain the odd tent and why you can't remember some details. Have you ever talked about this time with your dad?
No, I really doubt I dreamed the whole thing. It wasn't weird for us to go camping. I think it may have been a trip outside of scouts. I even remember the next morning my dad getting mad about the part of the camp stove he lost. He thought the other kid from my troop that went with us lost it. No one really liked that kid because he was a bit of a goof. We looked for it in the brush around where our tent was set up, but we never found it. He used something else to turn the camp stove on. We packed up but walked around a bit and he heated up a can of soup on the stove before we drove away. It would seem really strange to dream that up. It must have happened, but maybe it just wasn't as memorable at the time.
I live in coastal, heavily wooded Maine. It's been storming and raining, and the humidity is forever 100%. Going in for my graveyard at the nearest town from where I live, 30 minutes away. Familiar drive going relatively normal despite super dense fog, too dense for high beams in places. Scanning for deer as I drive, keeping it a safe 5 or 10 miles per hour under the limit on the slippery, foggy, winding roads. The woods are incredibly familiar. Suddenly, through the fog on my left, I notice a large mass of something. It's moving, but it's staying on the side of the road. Totally indistinct. Clearly not a deer or a car or anything I have ever seen before. Sort of looked like some eldritch abomination. Well and thoroughly spooked by this and terrified. Keep my speed steadily and continue on with my night like I never saw it. It was one of those moments that you hear about from your family that has done a little bit too much of exactly what you were doing and caught a glimpse or two of some kind of freakish monster. And yet, for some reason, knowing that I could simply just keep driving along to my destination at a cozy 35 miles per hour, as it was already somewhere in the dark behind me, made me hardly even care.
I work at a company doing tech support over the phones. Used to work midnights on a project. Small, tight-knit crew, we all got along really well. One night, I step outside with one of the guys. We're on break, having a smoke. I need to piss, so I finish up quickly, head inside, head off to the bathroom. As I'm walking down the hall, I feel like someone is behind me. I turn and look, and there's the guy I was just smoking with. Kind of odd because he said he was going to stay behind. The door closed all the way, and when you reopen it, it makes an audible noise that I didn't hear. Don't really think too much on it though, head into the bathroom, pissing, expecting him to walk in at any second, but he doesn't. I head back to my desk, sit down, hear the door open, and in walks my co-worker. Ask him about it, he has no idea what I'm talking about. Rest of the guys verify, say he just came back in. Weird, but eventually move on. 6 months later, that co-worker had left the company, got some job out in Colorado. I'm on my lunch break, and for whatever reason, I just get the feeling that I want to take my lunch at the break room by HR. I head over there, and to my surprise, that co-worker is there. I'm shocked, but also excited in a weird way. Ask him how he's doing, say I'm surprised to see him, ask what he's doing here. Nothing. Silence. He just sits at the table, a brown paper bag scrunched up in front of him, a can of Pepsi. Doesn't even make eye contact with me, just sits there, kind of freak out a little. Go grab another guy we worked with. When we get back there, dude is gone, but the brown paper bag and can of Pepsi is still there. That was some years back. I've been onto a different project now, and am on days. But I swear from time to time I'll see him walking across the parking lot or something. I checked our records and he definitely isn't listed there anymore.
Work overnights at Walmart. Janitor. Shift just started, around 10 or 11 p.m., pushing a broom around, jamming to music. The manager lets us use headphones as long as we keep one ear open. Suddenly hear right in my open ear, "Don't wake him up." Sounded like a loud whisper. Jump and get a sudden chill down my spine. The area I'm in is currently empty, no customers or other employees. I've been working here for a year now, and that's the first and only creepy thing that's happened to me. I never expected to see a Greentext of mine screen capped. Tonight I actually experienced something else kinda spooky, and it sorta ties in with something I dealt with several months ago here, which I'll start with for reference. About 6 or 7 months ago. Cleaning bathrooms. Start with the back restrooms first, because they're slightly bigger due to the family restroom. Big yellow gate at the entrance of the restrooms to let people know they're currently closed. Finish the main 2 restrooms and about to start the family one. The door's locked. The family restroom has a regular metal door complete with a knob and lock, like most family restrooms. Knock. No answer. Whatever, go to clean the front restrooms and come back to finish the family restroom later. Finish with the front restrooms, check to see if the family one is empty yet. Still locked. Okay, WWTF, slightly annoyed. Check back at multiple times through the night, always locked. Finally, at about 6, the door's unlocked. The minute I enter, I gag at how smoky it smells in there. Don't think anything of it, and chalk it up to a hobo who passed out in there all night, smoked and left. Tonight, I'm cleaning bathrooms again, same settings and shit. Go to clean the family restroom, locked, fug, Knock on the door. Some lady shouts, "Just a second!" Okay, whatever. Wait a bit. About 30 minutes later, still in there. Decide to go clean the front restrooms instead of waiting around. Finish the front, go back. Still locked. Knock. Same lady. I said just a second. Okay, WWTF. Ask someone I work with if they can call a manager when they pass by. Stand by the door to see if the lady walks out. The manager comes by. Explain the situation. They knock on the door. No answer. They jiggle the handle. The door opens. The bathroom is empty. Same smoky smell, except much stronger. Manager says not to worry about it. Probably just a stoner or hobo that snuck out when we were talking. I'm nope.jpging like hell in my mind.
B18. Ended up staying with my grandmother because she was getting old and my grandfather was in the hospital. Find out that I have to sleep in the upstairs room, the same place where my grandmother found creepy old homemade dolls and scribbles all over the closet walls. Great-grandmother also died there. She complained about seeing something come out of her closet to lay with her at night. Grandmother said she was just senile. She did have Alzheimer's, so we kind of just thought she was just losing her mind. She would also scream about her dead husband coming to visit her when he's been dead for at least 19 years. Fast forward to today, end up sleeping in there because I thought it was all bullshit and not real. Turned off my TV, closed the PC and decided to turn off all the lights. Start laying in bed with all the lights turned off, when I suddenly get a strange feeling that someone is standing in front of my door. Decide to ignore it, tell myself that it's late and that there's obviously nobody out there. Skip to next morning, I wake up and mention nothing to my mother. She then asks me why I was standing in front of my door at 1 a.m. I tell her that I was asleep and have no idea what she's talking about. She tells me that when she was going up the stairs to bed, she peeked down the hallway and saw a dark figure standing in front of my door and just assumed that it was me. Nope.avi out of there, but I'm still forced to sleep there since there's no other rooms in the house that are available. Next month goes by with nothing out of the ordinary happening. 2:30 a.m. Decide to go down into the basement to make myself a delicious sandwich. Basement is shaped like a T shape, where you walk down a hallway and the kitchen is to the right of the T and the living room is to the left of it. 2 windows on each side of the T, on facing the living room and the other facing the kitchen side. My cat comes down for a visit and decides to hang out and watch me make my sandwich. Suddenly, she peeks over my shoulder and just starts to freak out and begins to hiss at something behind me. Runs up the stairs and leaves me alone in the basement. I think she just might have seen a cat outside or something and freaked out. Go back to making my sandwich, kind of on edge over what happened. Suddenly hear a knock coming from the kitchen window. Jump really hard, I turned around and hit the backyard light. Look outside and there's nobody out there. No branches or trees anywhere near the backyard. Hear the same 3 knocks come from the living room side window. Living room side window is facing the front of the house, which you need to go through an alleyway and go up half a street before being able to get to. Knocks happened maybe 2 to 5 seconds apart. Leave my sandwich where it is and run up the stairs. Notice the kitchen light starts turning off and on as I make my escape. Run into my room, close the door, and open up my computer just to calm myself down. Hear something walking down the hallway coming from the basement towards my room. Footsteps stop and I yet again feel that energy. I then tell whatever the hell is out there to fuck off. No reaction. I decide to stay awake for as long as possible, but end up falling asleep with my TV on and all the lights on. I woke up at 4 a.m. and it's pitch black in my room. Decide to sit up and look towards my window that faces the front part of my house. Light shines through my window, but one half of it has no light shining through it. Readjust my eyes and look at what might be blocking it. See a tall, dark figure standing in front of my window, slowly approaching the foot of my bed. Jump out of bed, unlock my bedroom door, and run out of there screaming. Everyone wakes up, tells them that there was something in my room and that it was trying to come towards me. My grandmother looks at me with shock, and my mother and my siblings are all kind of freaked out. They tell me it was probably a night terror, which I don't agree with because I was fully awake and able to move perfectly. Doesn't explain why my lights and TV were turned off. My cell phone was also completely drained of battery, even though I had charged it the night before. Decide to sleep on the couch in the upstairs living room for a night. Horribly uncomfortable because all of the sofas are decorative and hard to sleep on. The next day, my grandmother does a sage cleaning of the house, hoping to ask whatever evil spirit is here to leave. Notice that whatever it is only bothers me right before bed and is waiting for me in front of my door to fall asleep. Shortly after, I found out that my grandparents bought the house from a woman who was supposedly rumored to do voodoo, found strange religious items in the basement area, and they decided to have the house blessed by a priest. Were unable to find a better house for the same price. Even though my grandmother was scared shitless, they still bought it. No idea what was tormenting me in that house. I was in a pretty shitty state, and whatever it was, thought it could feed off me emotionally. Till this day, I have no explanation for anything that happened. Shit ending, I know, but it's how it ended, IRL. Forgive me for any typing mistakes or shitty grammar. Just wanted to share something with you guys.
I liked your story, relatable and not over-the-top bullshitty.
Thanks, I know it's the internet, but this shit really did happen. I really don't have any explanation for it, and I cut a few parts out because they were sort of hard to put into text. But the sense of dread, and constantly being felt like something doesn't want you there is horrifying. I used to get that feeling only in my own room and in the basement. I also used to have weird dreams of an old woman spinning a purple yarn smiling at me. Not a warm, comforting smile, but a strange, offsetting one. My mother and her husband also talked to me one night about how they saw someone walk through my door one night, but didn't want to tell me about it until we actually moved out of the house. Shortly after seeing that, I woke up screaming and freaking the hell out. Whatever it was would only bother me when I was asleep, and it would wait in front of my door until I did so. Whatever electronics I would have in my room that weren't plugged in would also be dead, so I really have no idea what the hell it was. I was just glad to be away from it all.
I believe you. I've never really seen something, only ever in the corner of my eyes. But I know the feeling of being watched, which of course could also just be fear. And nothing else, but a lot of people are often right when they say they are feeling watched. I just don't buy things like all these skinwalker stories and other obvious bullshit. Even though I always give them the benefit of the doubt, I still remember back when I was little, I loved watching X Factor, at least I think it was called that. It was a TV series that played like 3 shorter films, and after they told which ones were real and which ones were just made up. Anyways, to cut it short, there was this one with a woman who was acting rude to a gypsy. The gypsy cursed her, and whenever the woman looked into a mirror, she saw a distorted, screwed-up face. The face fucked with me so much as a kid that one morning I went half asleep into the bathroom and saw something in the mirror that wasn't me or a nightmare version of me. Messed me up as a kid.
I have a not-so-spooky paranormal story of a recent happening. First day of summer break, heads off to go camping with my friends with our families. About 15 families of at least 4 people during the first night. Skip ahead a while, night before the day we have to leave. 7 families still haven't gone home. I decided to go night fishing, no one wants to join me. I walk about 1/3 of a mile to this nearby lake. I sit on a dock, half asleep, fishing for about 15 minutes. I notice the moon is fucking huge and orange tonight. From where I was sitting, the moon should like it was 1/2 inch long. Tonight it looked 1.5 feet long. The moon was also very low to the ground. You could only see half of it from over the trees. About 20 minutes later, I get bored and head back. About halfway back to camp, I notice the moon is about 2 feet higher in the sky and only half as large. Think nothing of it. As I get closer to the camp, the moon gets higher and smaller. I also see some 5-inch tall wooden people that turn into sticks when you get close to them. I thought nothing was off about that. At one point I see the moon in the same peripheral and think nothing of it. Later that night, while back at camp, I saw a shooting star. The shooting star was in front of the clearly visible cloud layer that I failed to mention earlier. I think nothing of it and head to bed. The worst part was I had my 3DS in my pocket in video mode and didn't even think to take a video. I could have had a 3D video of a UFO and aliens.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentexts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.